our Minnesota, Wisconsin. This is our territory. And so we're going to hear from someone who's working it for the kingdom in our territory.
All right. Thank you very much. Like Nate said, I'm from Milwaukee, and I'm very thankful to be here and speak in front of you all. I want to tell you about everything that I'm doing in the Milwaukee area, and I also want to give you 3 keys to success as a Christian. 3 things that you should always remember and do to have a successful walk in Christ. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, share my testimony with you. Like I said, born in Milwaukee, lived in a rough neighborhood, and my parents were divorced. My mom was very young when she had me, and she hadn't graduated from high school yet, didn't have a job, didn't have a house or a car, so she gave custody to my dad so he could raise me and so she wouldn't be homeless with me. And so I lived with my dad, and things weren't always easy. We lived in a rough neighborhood. He got remarried and then divorced. Even my mom got remarried. She also got divorced. But he would tell me that my mom didn't love me, and that's why I lived with him. And I didn't get to see her very often. And so I didn't have a great relationship with my mom. I didn't know her. And my relationship with my dad started deteriorating as I got older. The older I got to realize who my dad really was. I got to spend a little bit more time with my mom, and I got to realize that she did love me. And so my childhood was really rough. By the time I got to 14, me and my dad were getting into fights all the time, and he eventually kicked me out of the house and disowned me, and I moved to Sheboygan and started living with my mom, and she got remarried, and things weren't easier when I moved to Sheboygan. Didn't know my mom that well, so I didn't respect her and appreciate her like I should, and didn't respect my stepdad. I mean, my real dad just kicked me out of the house and disowned me, so I wasn't caring what my stepdad said. And so we would fight all the time, and I ended up moving to Arkansas at the beginning of my senior year, but I got in a lot of trouble down there, so I had to move back, and I ended up not graduating from high school. And what happened was I ended up working at Noah's Ark right here in Wisconsin Dells for 400 hours one summer, and that gave me a school to work credit, and I was able to use that to complete my high school requirements and get my high school diploma in September instead of getting to graduate like everybody else in June. So right after I got my high school diploma, a few months after that, I decided to rob a gas station, and was arrested and went to jail and was put on probation. And then after that, just started getting in more and more trouble after that. Started committing more crimes, started selling drugs, using drugs, partying all the time, and my life went on like that for a number of years, and I was happy with that. That's what I love to do. That's the way that I saw life. If I got a job, I might work a job for maybe 6 months just to keep my probation officer happy. And through the grace of God, I made it through those 7 years on probation without getting revoked and sent to prison. It was about 2009 when I got off probation, and I decided that I wanted a change, and I wanted to move. I did a lot of moving around while I was in trouble, just so I can avoid getting sent to prison. But once my probation period had ended, I decided to leave Milwaukee and go to Oklahoma. And I was down there for a few months, and I started getting really sick, and I was throwing up all the time, and I could not eat or drink anything. And I went to the hospital, and they told me that I needed to have emergency surgery because So if I didn't have that surgery, I was going to lose my kidney. So I moved back to Wisconsin in 2010, and I had emergency surgery. They fixed my kidney just in time, and right after that, I went right back to selling drugs again. And then one day, I had an issue with one of my oldest friends. We had grew up in the same neighborhood together. We'd known each other and been friends since we were 7 years old. And he tried to short me on one of my drug purchases. And I was angry. And I wanted to kill him. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to make an example out of him for my reputation. And the same day that that happened, a girl called me up and told me that she was pregnant with my baby. And I did not want to have any kids with her. I didn't want to have any kids, period. And so I told her that she had to have an abortion. And I was going to force her to have an abortion. And later that night, I didn't have a place to crash. So I called up my aunt. And she was a church-going woman. I asked her if I could spend the night at her house. And she said yes. And so I felt like since she was doing me that favor, then I would do her a favor, and I would go to church with her. So on my way to church the following day, a song came on the radio, a gospel song, and normally I hated gospel music. Anytime a gospel song come on, I'd turn that radio station right away because I didn't want to hear anything about Jesus. But I decided I was going to listen to the gospel song this time because I'm on my way to church, maybe it'd be good. And as I listened to the song, it's like it touched my heart. And all of a sudden, for the first time since I was like 13, 14 years old, I started crying. And I was crying uncontrollably. I mean, bawling. And I drove 10 blocks past the church before I had even realized it because all I could think about is, why am I crying? I'm freaking out. Why can't I stop? And I gathered myself, composed myself, went inside the church, and I listened to the pastors preach. And it was like everything that they were saying was going on in my life. And I realized that it couldn't just be a coincidence that the first time that I go to church in years, that they would be saying everything that was going on in my life. And I realized that God had to be real, and that he knows me, and that he cares about my circumstances. And after that day, I decided that I needed to give my life to Christ because I was going down the wrong road. And so after I left church that day, I went down to the pulpit and accepted Christ. And then after I left church that day, I decided that I wasn't going to sell drugs again. And I called up that girl and I told her that she didn't have to have an abortion, and that I would man up and I would be a father to that child if the child was mine. And so 3 days later, I ended up getting a job, and I moved back to Sheboygan to work up there and be near that girl that was pregnant. But we weren't working as like a couple, and so we weren't going to be able to be boyfriend and girlfriend. But I had posted on MySpace, because I didn't have Facebook at the time. I posted on MySpace that I was giving my life to Jesus, and I was going to get baptized really soon. And this girl that I used to date in high school, she had seen that, and she had reached out to me on MySpace. And we got to talking, and we started dating. And after I got baptized, it was, I believe, June 27th, I got baptized. A month later, these people had heard that I had had surgery on my kidney, and that I was a new believer and I had just got baptized. And so they wanted to raise some money to help me pay the bills, the hospital bills. And so they had a brat fry and a bake sale, and they raised $700. And then they matched that $700, and they gave me $1,400. And that was the exact amount of money I needed to get to a lawyer and file bankruptcy and wiped $26,000 off my credit. So I became debt-free a month after living for Christ. And then maybe a little less than a year after I got baptized, I went in front of the judge who convicted me of robbery back when I was 19 years old, and I told him that I was a changed man, and that I was living for Jesus, and that's it. I don't have any other reason why you should have any favor for me, but I'm living for Jesus, and I'm not the same man. I'm not going to commit any more crimes. And just off the strength of that, because I told the judge I was living for Jesus, he expunged that robbery felony off my record. Wow. And so I no longer have a criminal felony record that you could find anywhere. And so God has just started doing some amazing things in my life ever since I made him my Lord and Savior. I found out that the girl that was pregnant, that it wasn't my baby, and that I was thankful that I didn't force her to have an abortion. The girl that I started dating, we ended up getting married in 2012, and she had a daughter, and we have 2 daughters together now, so we have 3 children in total. In 2012, I also became a basketball coach. I started coaching freshman boys at Sheboygan County Christian High. And what's really amazing is because I never played high school basketball. I got in too much trouble in high school, so I never got to play high school basketball. And the only reason I got to become a coach is because I told them that I was a Christian, and that I became a pulpit supply preacher, and that I go and share my stories and my testimony, and I preach at different churches, and that I was a big fan of basketball. And so they gave me the coaching position, the freshman coaching position at Sheboygan Christian High. And in 2014, I got the opportunity to be a church planting apprentice. And so I moved to Appleton to be a church planting apprentice. And that went well. I also took an assistant coaching position at Xavier High School. We ended up going all the way to Madison and losing the state championship game. And then I got the opportunity to be a head church planting pastor. And they told me I could start a church anywhere that I wanted. And so with prayer and thoughtful consideration, I decided to move back to Milwaukee and start a church down there. While doing that, I applied at Eastbrook Academy. It's a small Christian school in Milwaukee, and I got the job as head varsity basketball coach there. So now I'm the head varsity coach there. I'm starting my own church, the House of Saints Baptist Church in Brown Deer, right outside of Milwaukee. I've also become a police chaplain. It's really amazing. A convicted felon, a guy that used to run from the police, is now working with the police. And really, I'm thankful for that, and I really feel it's God ordained, because I can be that bridge to those people who live a lifestyle that's similar to what I used to do, and to the police. And I can help them connect, and I can minister to people who were similar to the guy I used to be. And so I'm really thankful for all the amazing things that God has done in my life. But it hasn't been easy. You know, I've been living for Christ since 2010, and there's been a lot of heartache, and there's been some struggles. And I want to tell you all, it's not going to be easy. And Christ never promised that it would be easy. But he did promise that he would never leave you or forsake you. So you can count on that. Some of the struggles that I have had, and I just want to share with you, when I moved to Appleton, my stepdaughter's dad, he wasn't for his daughter leaving the city. And so we went through a custody battle, and due to the rules, we couldn't just take her to another city. And so because she needed to stay at the school that she was at, and so from the time we were transitioning to Appleton, her, my wife, and our oldest, our 1-year-old, they had to stay in Sheboygan while I was in Appleton by myself. And it was difficult not getting to have my family every single day, not getting to sleep next to my wife, not getting to see my kids every single day. And I had my days where I cried because I missed them, and I had my lonely nights where I ate alone and didn't have anyone to talk to. But it was through those hard times that it helped me get closer to God, you know, and I realized that He was the one that I had to depend on the most. You know, He was the one that comforted me. He was the one that I was able to look to guide me and strengthen me through that hard time. And in the end, God blessed us, where we won the custody battle, and then our oldest got to live with us. And then we ended up moving to Milwaukee and starting our church down there. And it's great to be home and be starting the church and doing what we're doing right now. But I want you guys to always remember something. There's a phrase that we used to say in my neighborhood, people that are bougie. I don't know if you know that word. Bougie is like people that are kind of stuck up. They think that they're better than you because of what they have or what you don't have, or they just think that they're cooler. There's people that are bougie out here, and it's not just worldly people. Of course, people that are non-believers, non-Christians, worldly people, they're not going to be for you because you're Christian. But sometimes there's going to be Christians that don't always believe in you. And you can't be discouraged by that. Jesus was persecuted by Pharisees and Sadducees, people that were supposed to be supporting him, people that were supposed to be believers in him, religious people, his people. They were the ones that nailed him to the cross. It wasn't outsiders, non-believers. It was his own people. And sometimes some of your own people are not going to believe in you and what God has called you to do. But that's where you have to turn towards Christ. And you have to believe in what He has for you and what He desires from you. You have to be obedient to Him. You have to seek His voice. And know this is the called out conference. You have to know your calling. So I don't want you to be discouraged by that. And one thing that you can always remember, one of the keys to success is staying humble. Always stay humble. No matter what anybody says about you, no matter what anybody thinks about you, it doesn't matter. All you have to do is stay humble. Moses was considered the humblest man in the world, and he led his entire nation out of Egypt. So as long as you remain humble, God will be able to use you, and He will lift you up. So those are some of the things that I just wanted to share with you all. The 3 keys to being successful in your walk in Christ is believing and trusting in God with your whole heart, loving people, and staying humble. Those are the 3 most important things in your walk with Christ. It'll take you wherever you need to be. God will bless you, and you'll be able to do all that God has in store for you. Some of the things that we're doing at the House of Saints right now, we just did a walk for responsible driving, where we're trying to raise awareness for people to consider themselves and consider others when they're driving. We're doing Bible studies with multiple people from different colleges. I have people from 5 different colleges right now: Concordia, UWM, Marquette, MATC, and Wisconsin Lutheran College. And we're just trying to make disciples, and we're doing some really awesome things, and the future is bright. And I just pray that all of you would stay focused on God, continue to love everybody, and be humble, and watch God's power, and watch how He blesses you in doing those 3 things. Thank you.
Church planting is hard. You know, most of you guys are part of your churches, and maybe you know how your church started, but my guess is you just kind of think, oh, it happened. My church has been here for forever. But that's not the case. It's hard work. And it, as Michael alluded to, even having to live away from family for a while, it's tough. And so we want to do 2 things. We want to rejoice with what Michael has shared with us, and thank God for the work that God is doing and has done in his life. But we also want to pray for him as he endeavors to start an expression of God's kingdom in the Milwaukee area. That's a big deal. That's a difficult deal. And so what I want to ask is if you guys would stand, and then I want a few people who would be willing to pray over him to come up here. We're going to pray over him in the record. So stand up. If you would be one of a couple of people to come up and pray over Michael, would you come up right now? Leaders, you can too. Okay. Great. And here's what we're going to do. We all can't get around Michael and circle him and put our hands on him, but I'm going to ask you guys. This might feel a little funny to you, but this is symbolic of our heart's desire to pray over Michael. And I want to ask you guys to reach out your hands towards him, and then we're going to lay our hands on him, and then a couple of these guys are going to pray for him in his ministry. And so I'll let you guys pray.
Dear Jesus, we want to lift up Michael right now, Lord. We thank you for his story, how that you've reached into his life. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to hear some of his experiences, Lord, of where he came and how you have made such an impact in his life. We thank you for him and his wife and his kids, Lord. And we pray over his church. We pray over the people in Milwaukee, whether they're in the sheriff's department, whether they're in the church, those that come in touch with Michael, that you would bless them and let them see you, and let him and his ministry continue to reach the people there in the Brown Deer and Milwaukee area, and even when he goes home with family, Sheboygan and other places.
Father, we do thank you so much for this opportunity to come and listen to a man that you reached out to and grabbed a hold of and called out. Lord, we thank you for Michael and his testimony, his willingness to share some of the hard things that he's gone through. It's great to be able to hear and see what people are coming and how you got a hold of him. Lord, I thank you for the ministry that you started through him. Lord, I pray for him and his family. Lord, just give him strength. We know how hard it is for new church plants. We know how hard it is for people to just want to seek you. Lord, I just pray that their bodies that go together will be a light in the community around them. Give them strength, Lord. Keep them strong. Keep them focused on you.
Father, I thank you for Michael. Lord, I thank you for what you've done in his life. Lord, the way that you've showed grace, and Lord, just transformation. Lord, I pray that as he ministers, that people would see the changes that you have made, that he did not make himself, Lord, but you changed his heart and continue to do so. Lord, I pray for effectiveness of ministry, Lord, that people would come and meet Michael and meet others in the church and want more of you because of their lives. Lord, I pray that you would guard them from any danger, any problems in their lives, Lord. Just be with them and get them through everything. Lord, I pray that, Lord, you would just open doors to them that they haven't even seen yet, that they haven't even thought about. But Lord, you would open up ways for my ministry, minister to others. In Jesus' name.
Father, we just thank you so much for Michael and his willingness to serve you, God, that he was listening on that day when he heard that song, God, and that he responded in faith and in kind, God, to your Spirit speaking directly to him, God. And we just pray that you would use Michael as a vessel, Lord, to transform individual lives in the Brown Deer area, God, and that those lives then would go on and transform other lives, God, that they would just see your hand at work, God, that people who come encounter with Michael and with those that he ministers to, Lord, that first and foremost they would see you, Jesus Christ, and that they would feel your love for them, God, that they would know you, that they would encounter you when they see Michael, when they talk with Michael, God, that they would hear his testimony, God, but loudest of all, that they would hear you calling them out by name, God, just calling them to repentance and calling them to faith in you, Lord, because we know that you love each and every person. You love the people around you no matter where they're at, God, and we know that you're calling all people to you at all times, God, and we just thank you that you are a God that cares intimately about people, that you care personally about people, God, that you care about the people of Brown Deer, God, that you cared about Michael and that you still care about him, God. We just thank you for your transforming power, and we just praise you for who you are, God. We just ask that you would continue using Michael's story, God, which really it's just a smaller piece in your overall story, God, to draw people to yourself, Lord. And that Michael will just continue to be bold and brave, God, that he would not feel discouraged, God, but that he would take the time to celebrate small wins, Lord, and to see your work, God, even in the small things.
Lord, we ask that you would hear our prayer. All right. Why don't you take a seat for a moment? And now we have one more section of prayer, but I want to make sure to mention Michael made this drive from Milwaukee today to be here with you guys. And he's going back tonight. So he came just to be here with you guys. And so we really appreciate that. And after this final section where you guys will pray with your youth groups, after that, if you want to find Michael, I'm sure he'll be hanging out here for a few minutes. If you have any questions or something you're interested to speak, as you heard his story and what he's doing in Milwaukee. So thanks for that foundation. All right. We're going to, this is how we're going to wrap up. I want you guys to get in your youth groups when I say so. Get in your youth groups. And youth leaders, I want you to lead your groups in prayer and for your city, where you are, where your church is. If there are multiple schools represented among your youth group, I want you to pray for those schools.